We have now arrived at our fourth and final panel of today's symposium dedicated to exploring entrepreneurship and capitalism within influencer cultures and gender politics. So this panel brings together four compelling presentations. And first of all, we will have Associate Professor Wei-Ping Chen from the Department of Communication and Technology at National Yang-Ming Jiao-Tong University, Taiwan. Wei-Ping, if you're here, please come to the floor and share your screen. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Wei-Ping Chen from National Yang-Ming Jiao-Tong University in Taiwan. And today I'm going to share part of my ongoing research on influencer culture in Taiwan. Specifically today, I'll be talking about the idea of flow authenticity. So what exactly am I looking at here? Well, in recent years, I've noticed more and more Taiwanese women creating content about their experiences in Southeast Asia, but these aren't your typical travel vlogs, not at all. These influencers are documenting their property investment in, for example, in Thailand, their spiritual journeys, their lives as digital nomads. And what makes this interesting? Well, it's how they position themselves at the crossing point of three things. One is digital entrepreneurship, and the second is women's digital self-presentation, and another is moving across borders. They are redefining what home means, turning it from a fixed place into something fluid that stretches across countries. They create stories where Southeast Asia spaces become the perfect backdrop for their authentic self and ideal work-life balance. So this led me to three main questions. First, how are these influencers transforming Southeast Asian spaces to present themselves as authentic? What story are they telling? And how? The second one is, how do these practices fit into economic and cultural relationship between Taiwan and Southeast Asian countries? And third, particularly I think relevant to our symposium today, what are the gender dimensions of these practices? To make sense what I was seeing, I needed to bring together a little bit three areas that don't often talk to each other that much. First is work on authenticity in digital media, especially idea about how influencers balance being relatable while still being economically and socially aspirational. And this helps me understand the authenticity strategy at play. Second is research on how physical spaces, specific the home, the idea of home, shape our identity. So the domestic spaces become sites for self-expression and increasingly for creating content. And the work on aesthetic labor is really helpful here, I believe. It shows how making spaces look good has become a form of work. The third one is studies on post-feminist knowledge work, especially how sharing personal experiences and emotions has become a professional skill in digital culture. And by connecting these three areas, I can better understand what these influencers that I'm going to explore and analyze are doing when they create content across borders. So before I share what I found, let me explain why this research matters. There's lots of great work on research on influencer authenticity, and growing research on spaces and identity as well. But there's not much that looks specifically at how moving between countries becomes central to authentic self-presentation, especially for women. And also, most studies either focus on influencer within one cultural context, or they look at digital nomadism without really examining its gender aspect. So my research tried to bridge this gap. I look at how mobility between cultural contexts become key to these women's authenticity practices and their professional identity as influencer. In other words, how crossing border become part of who they are online. So for my study, I chose two popular Taiwanese influencers. They represent different genre or different approaches to creating Southeast Asian content, but share some interesting patterns. The first one is Alyssa with over 2 million subscribers on YouTube. And she focuses on Thai property investment recently and also her spiritual journey. And another one is Dear Road with around 200,000 subscribers on YouTube. And she often documents her digital nomad experiences, lifestyle across countries such as Thailand and Vietnam. And why this too? Despite their different content focus, one on property, investment, and also spirituality, and another on digital nomadism and productivity. Both of them are transforming Southeast Asian spaces into extension of their authentic selves. Both blur the boundary between personal life, professional identity, and where they live. So I analyzed about 20 videos on YouTube, their videos on YouTube and their related posts on their social media, on their social platforms from the past 2 years. And I found 3 clear patterns that connect these similar different influencers. The first pattern I found is what I called special escape narratives. Let me explain. Both influencers create stories where Southeast Asian locations solve problems they identify in Taiwanese life. For example, here, Dear Road explicitly talks about how in Chiang Mai, she can arrange her schedule to include social activities in her co-living spaces, and including yoga, fitness, and work. So she kind of describes this idea of lifestyle as impossible back in Taiwan. And similarly, Alyssa construct her Thai property with Taiwan's high housing prices and raging social expectation. She'll literally say things like, this Bangkok condo cost me 4 million Taiwan dollar, and a similar space in Taipei would be 40 million, so 10 times plus. She makes the economic advantage explicit. They both create this kind of story. Taiwan represents strict schedule, expensive housing, expensive cost in urban life, and also rigid social rules. and Southeast Asia represent freedom through blending work, personal life, and spiritual practices. And also from a gender perspective, this is really interesting. It shows how women's empowerment gets framed through individual lifestyle choices rather than collective actions. Their escape is presented as a personal freedom, but it depends on economic advantages and unequal relationship between regions. The second pattern that I identified here is what I called aesthetic flow practices. Both of these influencers transform Southeast Asian spaces visually to show integrated living. For example, Alyssa's Bangkok home tour show beautiful meditation spaces with city views. And you can see in the top right image how she's showcasing the property's swimming pool as part of her lifestyle brand. Then there's Deer Road's Pomodoro immersive productivity video. Also on the right top, this creates a lifestyle that so as you can see, she sets up her laptop in what's labeled Milano Café de Paris. This creates a lifestyle that both exotic and familiar at the same time. So what connects them? They are turning domestic spaces into sites for content creation. Look at how home tour videos mostly transition to product promotion. As you can see at the bottom, the skincare product at the end of Alyssa's video. And also, they aren't just spaces they live in, they are visual manifestation of their brand. When we think about gender, this represents a distinctive form of feminized labor. It's a work of making space look good for content. It transforms traditional domestic work into content production, but it still keeps the focus on aesthetic and lifestyle areas traditionally associated with femininity. The third pattern is what I called flow expertise. Despite their different focuses, Alyssa and Deer Road, both of them transform their personal experiences into expertise they can sell. For example, Alyssa offers courses on becoming an influencer and also most recently her yoga training course, whereas Deer Roads, she creates content, teaching, freelancing, and time management. What's fascinating here? It's how crossing border becomes central to their expertise. They are not just selling digital skill or wellness knowledge. They are selling a knowledge and know-how to achieve integrated lifestyles through geographic mobility. And also their experiences in Southeast Asia become specialized knowledge they can market to audiences. This also shows a post-feminist knowledge economy. Women's personal experiences become form of expertise in digital marketplace, and their emotional authenticity isn't just personal expression, it's a professional asset, and Southeast Asian context provide them perfect backdrop for demonstrating this expertise. And based on the pattern that I demonstrate, I've developed the concept of full authenticity. It mainly describes this distinctive form of digital self-presentation. Flow authenticity happens when influencers use geographic movement to construct semi-authentic selves, and these selves are characterized by the smooth integration of work, life, spirituality, and self-expression. And unlike more general influencer authenticity, flow authenticity specifically looks at how mobility across borders becomes central to authenticity claims. As we can see, both Alyssa and Road, despite their different content focuses, share this fundamental approach. They use Southeast Asia context to demonstrate integrated, authentic self, yet experience, expertise that blend work and life seamlessly. So here, let me break down what makes flow authenticity distinctive. First, it integrates home, work, and spiritual practices instead of keeping them separate. Second, it frames moving between culture as journey of self-discovery. And third, it uses aesthetic labor that makes professional and personal domains. So here, I would say that flow authenticity works at both individual and structural levels. At the individual level, those influencers create compelling stories for personal transformation through their overseas experiences. They position emotional authenticity as a professional skill. They create belongings through aesthetic practices. At a structural level, these practices have complex gender implications. They challenge certain gender expectations. They present alternative model of successful women, defining success on their own terms. Yet they also reinforce economic differences between regions. They reposition Southeast Asian as a canvas for Taiwanese women, their self-actualization stories. And this reveals, I believe, the complicated politics of post-feminist digital culture. It offers certain form of empowerment, of course, while still being embedded in broader economic inequalities. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. And thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, feel free to ask with function or email me. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei-Ping, for your presentation. Very nuanced perspectives and case studies. Now we're moving to our second presenter, Delmarrich, Bilga, PERMATASARI. They are a lecturer in communication studies at a private university and also a PhD candidate in social sciences at Airlangga University. So floor is yours. Please share your screen. Thanks.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and all of the participants. My name is Delmarrich Bilga Ayu PERMATASARI. You can call me Bilga, she or her. I'm a PhD student in Airlangga University with the major is in media and communication studies. And I'm honored to present my research entitled Gender Commodification in TikTok Live Streaming, an analysis of the role of female influencers in attracting financial gain through live streaming content. This study is a collaborative work conducted alongside Dina Septiani, Henry Subiakto, and Irfan Wahyudi, and we all from Airlangga University, Surabaya, Indonesia. In today's presentation, I will explore how gender performance by female influencers on TikTok Live not only reflect societal expectation but also become mechanism for commodification within digital capitalism. And this is the first part of my presentation. And over the past decades, numerous studies have highlighted the impact of media on culture and cognition, with growing concern over the sexualized content on social media and its influence on young people. Sexualized portrayals, particularly of women, have led to increased self-sexualization, where individuals present themselves in sexually appealing ways to meet beauty standards and attract attention. This phenomenon reinforces gender stereotypes, promotes sexist beliefs, and exacerbates violence against women. On TikTok, Miss Wei, account name disguised, exemplifies this trend with her use of revealing clothing and the display of virtual gifts during live streams to attract a predominantly male audience, resulting in financial gain. However, this raises ethical concerns about agency, privacy, and the platform's role in incentivizing sexualized performances for visibility and monetary rewards. Media impacts on culture and cognition have been widely studied by Kellner and Ward. Social media, especially TikTok, increasingly features sexualized content, influencing youth behavior. Self-sexualization is women or girls portray themselves as sexually appealing to meet beauty norms. In this case, case of Miss W or Miss V is TikTok influencers with 237K followers. She uses revealing clothing and receives gifts, showing gender commodification. Her visual strategies attract a male-dominated audience and generate significant financial gains. This study explores how female influencers use sexualized persona for success and how this affects gender equality and identity in digital spaces. And here we go, Miss Wei as case studies. Miss Wei is a well-known TikTok live streamer in Indonesia with over 236 plus followers. She goes live every night with daily themes like Blessed Monday, Blessed Tuesday, and Blessed Every Day to match peak user activity. As a micro-influencer, she has a large following, though engagement can be lower than smaller influencers. During her streams, she greets viewers and thanks those who send her virtual gifts, helping to build a sense of community and loyalty. She usually wears revealing clothing like tight shirt, sleeveless dress, or in Indonesian language is daster, highlighting her big breasts. One of her key strategies is participating in TikTok Live's battles or PK sessions, where two streamers compete in real time to get the most virtual gifts from viewers. These 5 minute contests are loud, fast-paced, and often filled with shouting to encourage fans to send more gifts. Although the feature has been around since 2021, many users still don't know much about it, as TikTok doesn't promote it widely. Swedish male partner in PK program to create tension, and for the impact, she can receive gifts as a direct financial feedback. Miss Wei's account has a strong engagement rate of maybe around 3.66%, which is considered good for TikTok, especially with her large follower base. She often shows off the high value virtual gifts she receives, which highlight her success in turning audience interaction into income. This shows engagement and monetization go hand in hand in TikTok. making Miss W or Miss V a standout influencer on the platform. This is a research problem. This research aims to analyze how female influencers on TikTok, particularly focusing on Miss V, utilize the gender identity to attract financial benefits through live streaming specifically. On the research question 1, we analyze how do gendered performances by female influencers, specifically Miss V, contribute to the commodification of femininity on TikTok Live. And the second one is how does TikTok's platform technology, including virtual gifts, algorithms, and monetization policy, shape the interactions between Miss V and her followers? And how does this relate to her gendered performances on the platform? For theory, we use Gender Performativity by Judith Butler, 1990. Butler's theory reveals how TikTok performances both reflect and challenge normative gender roles while contributing to the commodification of gendered identity. Judith Butler's concept of gender performativity argues that gender is not innate but a repeated social performances shaped by cultural norms. Individuals enact gendered behaviors, speech, and appearance, reinforcing traditional masculinity and femininity. These performances are regulated by societal expectations but also offer space resistance and subversion. By performativity, individuals perform gender through behavior, speech, clothes, and gesture, consciously or unconsciously. Regulation and resistance. Gender performance are regulated by societal norms, yet offer space for resistance and subversion of these norms. Miss V's portrayal of a hyper-feminine, sexualized self through revealing clothing, flirtatious behavior, and interactions with male partners on PK program can be seen as a repetition of socially constructed gender norms. These performances are not simply reflections of her true identity, but rather a way of performing femininity that fits into broader cultural and societal norms around sexuality, attractiveness, and gender roles. So, this is why commodification of gender from Miss V performances are monetized through gifts, followers, and engagement tying gender to digital capitalism. Influencer profit from performing femininity, reinforcing and commodifying traditional gender roles. I will mention you first about ethical considerations in my research. This research examines gendered performances on TikTok Live by focusing on a prominent female influencer whose public content highlights hyperfemininity and sexual appeal. While the content is publicly accessible, the study follows ethical guidelines by anonymizing all identifiable information to protect the subject's privacy. The research adheres to standards set by AOIR and BPS, aiming to critically analyze platform dynamics, gender performativity, and commodification with academic integrity and ethical care. For research methodology, by analyzing video content, audience interaction, and platform monetization. For the first, we have video content. Here, we research in gendered visual of clothing, body language, facial expression, filters, and virtual gifts. And then for audience interaction, we focus on verbal and non-verbal cues to keep viewers engaged and encourage donations through performative reaction. And the last is platform monetization, algorithmic promotion of videos based on engagement. For the examples, likes, comments, and shares. And here we go for preliminary analysis. For the first is performative femininity. Indonesian ideals of womanhood. In this context, Miss Wi's appearance and behavior align closely with the societal expectation of the ideal Indonesian woman, which are still deeply influenced by patriarchal cultural norms. Her large breasts symbolically evoke fertility, while her physical attractiveness affirms traditional notions of feminine beauty. The choice to wear a sleeveless dress or duster is a modest or domestic dress signifies humility and an adherence to normative domestic rules. Her use of both Bahasa Indonesia and local dialects demonstrated a conscious embrace of cultural identity, reinforcing a sense of rootedness and national belonging. Furthermore, her warm, friendly demeanor and her ability to remain composed in the face of sexually abusive words or comments and objectifying comments reveal a strategic performance of patience and emotional control of a woman. Her deliberately soft and coquettish manner of speaking fulfills the societal ideal of feminine gentleness and submissiveness. Collectively, our overall image embodies the ideal Indonesian woman, traditional modest and emotionally strategic in the digital space. And the second is glam and gift. This shows how Miss Wei turns gender into gold. Miss Wei cultivates a sensual and hyper-feminist persona as a glam. She regularly employs beautifying filters that lighten her skin tone and enhance facial features, conforming to Indonesia's widespread aesthetic ideal that valorizes fair skin. Her on-camera presence often includes semi-revealing clothing, such as a duster that emphasizes her big breasts, subtly accentuating sexualized elements of her body. Miss Wi's success on TikTok Live is driven by her gender performance, which aligns with both audience and preference and the platform's monetization system. She streams nightly during peak hours using the PK format, where she adopts a sensual, hyper-feminine persona enhanced by filters and revealing outfits like duster. Her speech and behavior, such as calling male partners like Bang is a brother, and doing physical challenges reinforce traditional femininity while maintaining emotional control despite frequent objectification. This performance style builds parasocial relationships with viewers, encouraging virtual gift giving and boosting engagement. TikTok's algorithm further amplifies content like hers, rewarding creators who show warmth, empathy, and cultural familiarity with greater visibility and financial gain. And the third is the
Sorry to interrupt.
gender.
Could you wrap up soon? Thanks.
Okay, yeah. And here the preliminary finding. The research remains in progress, particularly in terms of analyzing the volume and value of gift Miss B receives and understanding how moments of love is in PK. Future research is needed to further investigate how commodification fluctuates based on platform competition and to what extent influencers like Miss Wei recalibrate their performance. TikTok Live receives gender in performative and economic terms. Female identity becomes a product under capitalism, urgent need for better platform ethics and feminist digital policy. Okay, that's all from me. I hope as closing remarks, our research highlights how female TikTok influencer can give benefit for us. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for such a visually engaging presentation. Now we're moving to our third presentation. Winarnita Som is a doctoral student in the Faculty of Cultural Sciences at Universitas Padjadjaran, Indonesia, and her research will explore culture and pop culture with emphasis on fashion studies and digital media.
Okay, sorry. I'm a doctoral student from Universitas Padjadjaran, but unfortunately, Professor Akwarini Priyatna, my supervisor, couldn't join us today due to her other commitments. My research examines how Bandung-based content creator Nadevins uses Instagram, consistently featuring the same neighborhood gang or alley as the backdrop of her thrifted fashion looks. What's compelling isn't just her outfit, but how she transforms this ordinary passage into a fashion stage. While gang spaces have traditionally been masculine domains, Nadevins claims this space through feminine fashion presentation. Her approach exemplifies what Abidin calls visibility labor, a strategic self-presentation that creates a distinctive personal brand and illustrates Bennett and Peterson's concept of scenes, network connecting physical location and digital communities. My research explores how this seemingly casual content performs serious cultural work, negotiating gender norms, transforming perception of urban spaces, and creating new class aesthetics. I forgot to change. Okay. These urban kampung and their gangs have historically been marginalized and in development discourses, stereotyped as backward compared to modern malls. As Newberry points out, they're typically working class spaces with distinct social dynamics, including clear gender divisions about who occupies which spaces. What's striking about Nadevin's approach is her anchoring of fashion identity to one specific location, unlike typical fashion imagery with constantly changing backgrounds. Meanwhile, thrifting in Indonesia has evolved from economic necessity into a fashion scene with its own aesthetics and values, as documented by Rahmawati and colleagues. Check. I employed two approaches. First, visual discourse analysis of Nadevin's Instagram content, examining how she consistently presents the same gang space from the same angle, creating a distinctive visual signature. Second, ethnography to study the interaction between Nadevins and her followers, focusing on comments about the space itself or respond to her consistent presentation style. This revealed how audiences engage with her visual reimagining of urban kampung spaces and how the specific gang becomes inseparable from Nadevin's brand identity. These methods revealed the unique relationship created between creator, audience, and physical space. No. Okay. In this December post, we can see clear evidence of spatial reappropriation. The gang isn't just a pageway she happens to photograph in, it's become her deliberate fashion stage. Comments like apartments may be aesthetic, but gangs are most authentic, show transformation from ordinary infrastructure to valued setting. This image demonstrates cultural hybridization. Her styling reflects global trends while situated in local gang context. This appears in comments too, with one follower noting noting the aesthetic value comes precisely from juxtaposing contemporary fashion against the textured gang environment. There's also gender spatial negotiation happening. In Indonesia urban context, gangs are traditionally masculine-dominated spaces. Here, Nedivin's consistent presence establish an ongoing relationship with the space that transform how it's gender. And in this January this post sparked conversation about gender and belonging. Several followers ask, aren't you afraid of what the neighbor will say? And wearing clothes like that in a small gang, aren't you afraid of being gossiped about by a neighbor or catcalled by men hanging out? This reveals gender expectation in public space in Indonesia. Gang space have traditionally been men hangout spots, places where women might feel uncomfortable lingering, where fashionably dressed women might feel vulnerable. Nedivin's response emphasizes personal freedom. Don't let other people's world play a major role in your freedom to live your life fully. Class dynamics emerge in comments expressing surprise at the gang's cleanliness or challenging the idea that fashion belongs only to affluent neighborhoods, as if people who live in gangs shouldn't have full outfits. This creates a dynamic dialogue between creator and audience about who belongs where and how they should present themselves, not just modeling clothes, but modeling possibilities for feminine presence in urban kampung spaces. Thrifting operates as more than shopping in Nedivin's content. Followers describe it as treasure hunting, valuing for both the process and discovery. Nedivin's challenge stigma around secondhand clothing. When a follower mentions embarrassment, she counters with, "Why should one be embarrassed?" Her follower reinforced with this with comment like, "Being cool doesn't require the prestige of a 3 trillion rupiah Hermes." The community also navigates concern about thrifted clothing when one follower asks about energy from previous owners. It prompts multiple responses reflecting diverse perspectives, from practical solution like wash it, recite Bismillah while washing, to philosophical approaches. If an item is considered just a lifeless object, that's all it will be. Through this interaction, thrifting emerged as a complex social practice encompassing the identity, values, and community. This research highlights how everyday politics operates through seemingly apolitical activities. When Nedivin staged a feminine fashion in gang spaces or showcases thrifted clothing, she subtly challenges norms about gender, space, and consumption. For understanding digital influencer culture in Southeast Asia, this case contrasts with mall-centered fashion influencers by centering local spaces and sustainable practices. This research also illuminates youth identity formation in urban Indonesia today, navigating tensions between local and global influences, and creating hybrid identity that value specific places while connecting to global conversation. Through Nedivin's content, urban kampung spaces are re-evaluated for their authenticity, gender spatial division, spatial division are challenged, and thrifting emerges as a scene with a shared value. This research contributes to understanding how young Indonesians use digital platform to reshape collective understanding of urban space, creating ongoing conversation about what kampung spaces mean and who belongs in them. So that's all, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much. Now we are moving to our last but not least presentation of today. Our last presenter, Akira Keene TEOTRAKOOL, is a first-year undergrad student at Grinnell College, majoring in political science. Thank you so much for joining us today, Akira. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Just to let it load for a second. So just to briefly say that my paper grounds something that finds itself that it's really new contextually. And I've chosen to contextually explain the paper and its frameworks and to ground it due to the current dynamics that are in the way I conceptualize it. And because of this, I would reserve the content analysis for my own actual paper. So right now is 3 a.m. and it's been exciting to listen to everyone, and I'm happy to close out this panel. So my topic is on addictive glamorization. I examine how enterprising influencers in Bangkok transmit a sense of affective understanding towards its observers who are Bangkok youths, with that aspect of Bangkok youths helping reimagining Thai urban identity through an aspect of aspirational femininity that is gained from the actions signifying from enterprising influencers. So my thing considers the idea of addictive glamorization to come from an attitude of luxury, that it is a sort of attitude, behavior that you're addicted to a sort of glamorous luxury, but then it is something that I feel has a sort of encoded feminine value into it. So the type of gender politics that I explore is addictive glamorization of how middle-class youths become psychologically invested in aspirational content from higher socioeconomic creators. And these enterprising influencers or higher socioeconomic creators are decanters, of which are international school students or folks who have been schooled in international school systems. And it will try to explain the reshaping of Thai urban identity, in which is the dynamics produced by the high school students who are observing this kind of content that is happening, which one thing that I really want to draw out from this type of phenomenon that is happening is the aspirational femininity that considers attainable luxury a sort of middle-class desire for social mobility and a possible entrepreneurial attitude that is derived from aspirational femininity. So just a little bit, if one may consider my work to be if the idea of class and femininity are perhaps close related, and some may see that class is also a big discussion point in my work, I plan to reveal that the values that are juxtaposed between class and feminist are actually coupled due to the framework that it's studied in Thailand or studied in a less Western context, because these identities are more bundled up when you consider something that's maybe context specific. In this sense, I compare international school content producers or enterprising influencers to have an entrepreneurial desire with elite status that asserts a sort of hard femininity, Bangkok youths that have middle-class desires and have aspirational class status to receive an aspirational femininity. And some operational definitions that I give to femininity. Aspirational femininity refers to gendered aesthetics value that is presented as desirable but not accessible to audiences, requiring specific forms of consumption and education, self-presentation to achieve. It's something to be achieved. Well, hard femininity refers to the entrepreneurial, strategic, business-oriented of feminine performance that demonstrate competence, ambition, girl boss, economic acumen, while maintaining that gendered expectations around the appearance and conduct of that femininity. And soft femininity is something that I don't really discuss in this work, but generally is something that's to maybe extend upon hard femininity. So my two research questions for this presentation would be, in what ways does a stratified femininity seen by Mills, 1999, on femininity and gender in Thailand's new economy, or like new labor industrialization, manifest in contemporary Thai digital culture, particularly through the consumption of practices, self-presentation of the middle class that engage with this tech influencer content. And because of that, how do Bangkok-based tech influencers strategically construct entrepreneurial feminine identities that bans exclusivity to resources with accessibility to the middle class to maintain their class distinction while creating aspirational content? So I would discuss only two cases in this presentation. The first case would be a case on Donut Library, a cake donut shop that's ran by a deck inter, and then baby cakes. These are cakes, like normal cakes that like you write things on them, and you see with like the container, it's just very weirdly pastel. And then a case on like linguistic fragmentation from a decanter who like may have not have like a clear linguistic argumentation with like Thai and English. There's a lot of cases to be considered qualitatively. So the approach that I use for this type of work would be global ethnography, primarily grounded by the framework of Suda, Tapais, and Eskandel. I define this global ethnography that it's an ethnography that's multi-sited and something that you can systematically draw out transnational study from like different parts. And like this idea of global ethnography also connects to the idea of digital ethnographies, but let me explain it here. So I first defined that for receiving affect or like physical sort of like on-site behavior, students will act as reactants to enterprising influencers on a day-to-day basis, and paying particular attention to how they respond, emulate, and metacritique these contents themselves, like critiquing the entrepreneurial feminine performances by these influencers. And then, as a point to global ethnographies, when we consider the global forces that can be studied through like single-site field work, we can understand how like the more specific you of like the place that you study, maybe you can find a way to capture these transnational processes even in these single-sided places. And globalization itself perhaps is gendered, as argued by Freeman, as it operates in a sort of transnational flow of culture and capital. I will ground this argument soon in the next slide. However, a multi-sided ethnography would contextualize both cultural producers and receivers. So a digital affect. So the inter-influencers employ a carefully calculated balance of intellectual luxury, signifiers, and Thai cultural markers. And they showcase global brands while incorporate Thai phrases, colloquialisms, or contextualization. And these digital entrepreneurs integrate like a sort of narrative building that they feel like is like a sort of self-presentation of themselves being a sort of hard femme, like very girl bossy kind of person who's independent and very transparent about their business practices. But through this personal storytelling, but then selective glimpses, they build parasocial relationships that simulate intimacy while strategically maintaining hierarchical distance because these influencing enterprises do not give that access to the middle class. So to understand this, we draw to the feminization of digital culture in Thailand. So first we consider how techno-femininity is constructed in Thai digital culture as as opposite to techno-masculinity in the West. And then I consider the aspect of class ethnicity in this digital culture and post-feminism. So firstly, the idea of feminization in Thailand, of digital culture in Thailand, which would be thinking like, how would the Western side of things contextualize this? And um, usually when we think of digital media or new media or mass communication in the US, we think of something that's maybe more related to like men in the newsroom, journalism as a men's sort of like a thing. But then with Thailand, we would say that Thailand creates a counter narrative where new media entrepreneurship is increasingly coded as feminine space. As Sinpeng, the plenary speaker, documents, Thailand's digital landscape developed alongside a robust consumer culture where women were active participants at its early stages. So traditional Thai gender norms that associate women with communication, social networks, and aesthetic production would transfer as well to digital spaces, and we would consider Thailand uh, having like a techno-feminine sort of like society or entrepreneurial model. Techno-feminine in this case means the situated environment that maybe women are more suited for technology, like tech savvy more than men, but in this sense more media savvy. When we go to techno-feminism, I call on Crystal Abedin again uh, to maybe use one of these principles of visibility labor that entrepreneurs use to maybe like extend an aspect of self-presentation to themselves. But then in this case of Thailand, intentional production of carefully created content by these influencers are designed to attract attention, but then for Thais, we would contextualize it into Thai cultural frameworks that value feminine aesthetics, grace, and social acumen as seen by perhaps like this woman as in like what's it called? As in this techno-feminism that we're in. Because of this, digital platforms acts as contemporary extensions of these female-dominated commercial spaces, with social media becoming virtual marketplaces where feminine business acumen is valued and then rewarded. Because of this, I moved to class, ethnicity, and Thai digital femininity. I touch on the Thai Chinese aspects of digital femininity a little bit, and I would say that of the history of diasporas in Thailand, folks who are like perhaps more like economically elite are folks who are Thai Chinese. As Kasin Tejapira documents, Thai Chinese communities have like ties with Thailand's business elites, which adds that they may like have like this is like a big diaspora in enterprising influencers or folks who would like in the sense of like where class reproduction is seen by Thai Chinese folks and seen as salient, and then these intersectional identity positions would allow these influencers to strategically deploy like markers of Thai Chinese like cultural like traditions or like mannerisms alongside Thai national identity and would identify them as like a hybrid cultural performance. But then I would compare that this Thai Chinese entrepreneurial value would be compared to as like hard feminine. So then I come to Mills and I say that Thai femininity has been stratified by class, with elite forms of femininity associated with lightness, restraint, and cosmopolitanism, as seen by hard feminism, girl bossing the globe, are amplified rather than diminished through digital platforms. And because of that, digital media intensifies these distinctions while simultaneously making elite feminine presentations more broadly accessible as aspirational content, creating new pathways for class performance and negotiation. The influencers we studied that would blend Thai Chinese business ethics and so on and so forth. I'll just skip to the time constraints. And then we come to this very big concept of like Dek Inter. So Dek Inter is just, right now the definition is they are folks who have an international school background or schooled internationally in other places that are not Thailand. But then because of that cultural background, it creates a sort of like veil or like distinction that they have. This is like maybe like a point to Bordeaux, but essentially this concept of Dekinter had grown from Cohen's ethnography project in Chiang Mai, that they had defined Dekinter in a different way, which would prioritize style-based identities that are not based on educational status. But then when education is seen as a salient factor in having a class distinction, it like legitimizes, like influences authority to maybe curate and promote international luxury aesthetics as an international person who has like a schooling background, while maintaining claims to tie and authenticity despite their privileged position. So I give like a general diagram of how my general theory works. There's a content production, content reception. There's a lot of definitions, things that I add into these two sources, and content production would be digital ethnography, content reception would be the on-site reception that I gain from observing my peers. And a little bit on femininity construction, a little bit of things there, and then a little bit on the social implications of like this idea that I'm trying to reproduce about addictive glamorization. So it would reinforce hierarchies and suggest like possible mobilities as seen by so on and so forth. But then I would go to a few cases. So the first case is Pinettikinte, which is a sort of like, so they sell cake donuts, and they sell cake donuts in a way that they try to maybe emphasize the quality of the donut, and then they just bring up very vague or like maybe internationalized like Western sort of like flavors of like donuts, like rose pistachio, yes, birthday cake, yes, Earl Grey, yes. But then you see pandan and you realize, oh, they're still Thai. Like they're not that away from like what they're trying to do. But all these flavors are not like rooted in like Thai understanding. It's not common that anyone would do an Earl Grey lavender cake donut. But for this, so a little bit on the rhetoric that Pinnet uses to ground their case. They sell like around like two to $4 per each donut. Like it's like that's pretty expensive in Thai standard. And they use like self-aware slogans that they say that, oh, well, this is the donut that's very like the sweetest, the best, and then they like throw a gag in which they said, oh, it's also the most expensive donut, and they're very self-aware about the way that they market themselves. And then when they code switch this international school, like they use Tinglish, they use a mix between Thai and English, and that's like a really other point that a bilingual banter, like a sort of like that, shows both values of cosmopolitanism, distinction, and just a way that it's what people are not used to. And because of that, middle class followers both like it's a 50-50. It's a little bit ironic when you feel like you're inclined to buy their product because they're so honest, but at the same time, I don't feel that I relate with this at all. And it creates a desire that's emotionally compelling, but structurally out of reach. And there's a second case about these little cakes. These are called baby cakes. They're just normal cakes that you write like, and the Thai youth that I've been with usually write very obscene messages. So just to explain, like you see the box is very pastel. There's a very specific way. It feels Western, feels American in such a way. And with that pastel, with that soft aesthetic, going back to soft femininity, it creates a sort of feminized techno entrepreneurship that it has a sort of like this soft quality. It feels very emotionally, like affectively charged. And then so on and so forth. It has a baking party vibe, and then entrepreneurial messaging in their own content that with like those idea of pop events, there's these are some things that are new in Thailand, and they're like most recently constructed. I will wrap up now. Thank you so much. So a working conclusion for my thesis here, I find that digital platforms intensify class distinctions while paradoxically making elite feminine presentations accessible as aspirational content. And this creates what Mills calls that as stratified femininity, where class is marked through gendered consumption and self-presentation. So that gender has a say in stratifying class. And addictive glamorization precisely like emerges where class meets aspiration and creates engagement with the content that simultaneously reinforces hierarchical distance, and while suggesting the possibility of mobility through proper feminine performance. The addictive quality, to conclude, emerges from the tension between classes and from like the different conceptions of sending and receiving this kind of femininity. Audiences are aware of the constructive nature of the influencer content while remaining emotionally invested in its aspirational promise. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Akira. This is fantastic, especially for an 3 a.m. presentation and from a first-year college student. You did so well. Thank you so much.